Hey everyone, my name is Rich, and this is Rich Talks Records, episode number 24. And today we are doing a shorter video, ideally. God knows it'll be a one-parter. But songs that Nirvana taught us. So you all know about Nirvana, and I have mentioned this a couple times here and there, but also, we will have a channel update at the end, so you're just gonna have to watch to see what the mystery channel update will be. Ooh! As I have mentioned previously, it was my first semester of my freshman year of high school. I think it was like 2 weeks into the semester when Nevermind came out. So as I have said before, I was truly primed and ready. I was the prime audience for them. And, as we all know, Nirvana did not happen in a vacuum. And I was already kind of going that way. I was, I hadn't sort of formally broken away from being a heavy metal kid, but I mean, I was definitely going in that direction, whether it was Jane's Addiction, Fishbone, Suicidal Tendencies, who else? Faith No More a little bit. And then all those other sort of bands that even if I couldn't find records by them, I considered myself a fan of, like Wrathchild America or Circus of Power. Like, there was just what it was known as at the time was like weird metal. And Alice in Chains, Man in the Box, was a weird metal song. So that I considered myself part of that by the time Nevermind came out. And I remember I was a big Circus Magazine reader, and there was a writer for Circus Magazine named Mordecai Kleidermacher who chronicled weird metal. So Nirvana sort of initially kind of came in. That was the doorway that they sort of walked through initially. So, it's funny to think about, but I didn't differentiate them that much than from Primus doing Jerry Was a Race Car Driver. It was all sort of like weird and wow and what's this. So and then but Nirvana, I latched onto them really hard, and one of the first things that I noticed about them was that they were constantly referencing music that I had never heard of or had little to no frame of reference for. So to me, they were kind of picking up the grand tradition of evangelizing relatively unknown artists, kind of like what I related it to as a teenager was what the British Invasion bands were doing. So none of this is in any order. I'm just going to be kind of holding up records and just talking about all these different bands that I found out, directly because of Nirvana. More or less. So the first one is kind of the. I'm not going to go in chronological order because I'm not going to be like, in 1991 I found out about that. That would be insane. But I'll just sort of loosely run through this. So the first one would be the most obvious one, and that would be the Jesus Lizard split single that Nirvana did. This would have come out ahead of In Utero. I got this at the same record store that I talked about in my Black Flag videos. So this was, and they only had cassette copies. I was not buying cassettes by this point. So there's the N side for Oh the Guilt for Nirvana, and the J side for the Jesus Lizard for their song Puss. So I played the hell out of this damn thing, and I absolutely loved it. So the Nirvana song on here, Oh the Guilt, is one of my absolute all-time favorites. It's maybe even a top 5 Nirvana song for me. The version, unfortunately, on With the Lights Out they slightly remixed and they took out the sound of Kurt flicking his cigarette lighter against the microphone, and for us fans, that's very annoying. But the Jesus Lizard song on here, Puss, was incredible, and I absolutely loved it. So I duly went and got their concurrent album Liar, which had that song. So, I mean, the Jesus Lizard, it doesn't get much more direct. It doesn't get much more direct than that. Another person who I would have found out about, he was... I don't know if I got his name directly from Nirvana. I mean, he was certainly in the zeitgeist, and Michael Stipe had talked about him, and Sonic Youth referenced him a lot, but wound up becoming one of my absolute favorite writers of all time, and somebody who I really looked up to. Was William Burroughs, and Burroughs was in the Just One Fix Ministry video. I liked Ministry a lot, and I'm trying to think. He did a song with REM. If you've never heard the version of REM's "Star Me Kitten" with William Burroughs on vocals, that's one of the great unhinged recordings of the 90s. And you are wild. Oh, it's awesome. But anyway, but this came out on Tim Kerr Records. I want to say it came out at the end of 93. I had a friend of mine gotten a CD copy of it, and I had it on a cassette, probably within maybe a month or two. I mean, Kurt was like still alive when I was listening to it. But this is The Priest, They Called Him, and that's Chris Novoselic dressed as a priest. This is Kurt. It was recorded separately. This is Kurt on making noise guitar, and Burroughs reading a short story, and it's a picture disc, so there's that, and then the photos of them on the back. I got this, I don't know. I'm going to say like 97, 98 maybe? I forget exactly when I got this, but it was later 90s, but I had it, like I said, I had it on a mixtape for eons. One of the most obvious bands that I don't know that I would have ever gotten into without Nirvana, and one of the first bands I ever heard them reference, and I thought, oh, that's kind of a wild name for a rock band, was the Melvins. I mean, so the Melvins, I have pretty much the whole catalog. They're, if I don't have it physically, I have it digitally, because there's like all the Hostile Ambient Takeover B-sides and stuff like that. Stuff comes and goes pretty quick. So I have, like, at this point, I mean, I have a whole hell of a lot of Melvins, but this is obviously their 1990, 91? No, is it? Yeah, 91 album, Bullhead. It's amazing. And one of my favorite album covers of all time. I fucking love this thing. So yeah, and so it's funny to think about where my musical taste would be at now, or like over the last 10 years, let's say, without the Melvins, because the influence of the Melvins just sort of grows and grows as time goes by. A band that I definitely got into because of Nirvana was the opening act on the last European tour, and that, of course, would be a legendary first wave punk band, the Buzzcocks. This is their second album, Love Bites, and why did I choose this one? Because I love the cover. I love the artwork. It's just that simple. But one of the things with the Buzzcocks is a lot of people stop with the singles going steady, and that was what I would have gotten way back when. And the other thing with first wave punk bands was other than the Sex Pistols, I took sort of a dim view of a lot of them. And honestly, it kind of, Nirvana sort of being the tastemakers, it was very important for me, sort of who they pointed out as being great. So the fact that they had the Buzzcocks open and the Kurt wanted to like hang out around them so much was enough of an endorsement for me. So excuse me, for years and years and years, I thought of them primarily as a singles band, and how a lot of people think of them, catchy singles. And it really wasn't until years later that these were the British reissues of the first three albums. These are exemplary, and because it has all the B-sides and standalone singles and live recordings and demo recordings. I mean, these are treasure troves, this series of reissues. And the Buzzcocks were so much more than a singles band. I mean, they were an amazing, and then with the Spiral Scratch stuff in the early Howard Devoto period, like they were that was an amazing genius art project band that became one of my all-time favorites. But it starts with Nirvana. A band that I don't... Again, another band that was an opening act, and I just knocked a bunch of stuff on the floor. But a band that was an opening act for Nirvana. Again, I don't know that I literally first heard of them because of Nirvana, but another situation where being an opening act was that's gotta be good. Became another one of my favorite bands ever, and I have everything by, and I promise you there will eventually be a video on them. I keep coming close to doing it, and then I keep backing off because it's going to be like either like 15 minutes or like 20 hours. So maybe, if you like this band, maybe in the comments below, you tell me what kind of video you want. You tell me what kind of video would be helpful. Maybe that might help me narrow down my options. That's Japan's, Osaka's finest, The Boredoms. This is the first album I ever got by them, 1992's Pop Tatari. Home of probably my single favorite Boredom song, Bore Now Bore. Like, unbelievable. I'm not going to open it up because and I had grabbed a copy of Super Roots, the first Super Roots release. I'm not opening these up because when I do the Boredoms video, I'm a big fan of the artwork. Like, I kind of love the artwork as much as I love the music. So I'm not going to get too deep there. I'll just open it up that much. Like, I really, really, really love the artwork. So, but that, like, the fact that like Nirvana was like singling them out as being this like wild band, and they just sounded so interesting to me. And that was the thing with alt rock. I wasn't really interested in other bands like Nirvana. I wasn't interested at all in who were the left me far behind, hey, yeah, whatever those guys were called. I wasn't interested in the Counting Blue Cars band, whatever the fuck that was. Stone Temple Pilots was fucking anathema to me. That's what was so cool about Nirvana, was finding out about stuff like the Boredoms. That's what I was in it for. This next one is an obvious one. I wonder if I will do two. Let's see if I can be slick and do two really obvious ones in a row. Oh, yeah, here we are. Okay. Slick. And that is, so obviously, David Bowie's The Man Who Sold the World. Obviously, I knew who David Bowie was. Modern Love was one of my favorite songs of my childhood. But Bowie in the early 90s was, I didn't differentiate Bowie from, I don't know, Dire Straits or David Gilmour-led Pink Floyd or any of the other sort of, or Robert Plant's solo career, or any of the other British rock institution things that you were kind of supposed to like, but I don't know. Was it good? I don't know. So Bowie to me wasn't that much different than like that like journeyman era Eric Clapton, So it wasn't until Nirvana covered this song that I started to get interested in Bowie, and just a little while after Unplugged, so it would have been, like a year and a half after Unplugged, I saw the the History of Rock and Roll documentary, there were two that came out at the same time, for anybody who remembers. This is pretty obscure stuff. There was the Time Life one that was like sold on television, and that's the one that's been excerpted out into, you see little clips from that and all sorts of other rock docs and things. But there was the PBS one, and the PBS one was the one that got it right. The PBS one was a fucking masterpiece. And to this day, I guess it ran into all sorts of rights issues, but to this day, that is still like, it's barely even on YouTube. It's only like in like weird chunks, and like there's parts that have the sound mixed out so it doesn't have copyright strikes on it, like really weird. But in that had Bowie at the BBC playing Queen Bitch in, I guess, 71, 72. And that was what solidified it. So what Nirvana started, and then also the girl I was dating was a massive, massive Bowie fan. But again, it started with Nirvana. Also from that Unplugged, and became one of my favorite bands. I mean, obvious, but Jesus, the Meat Puppets. This is obviously Meat Puppets too. I chose it because obviously these are the songs Nirvana covered. And I didn't get this right away. I was like, what's with the vocals? Like, I didn't understand it. And I initially couldn't get what Kurt heard in the Meat Puppets. I liked the Backwater. I liked the hit that they had, but this was earlier and very different. And this is truly one of those times I had to listen until I got it, and I had to attune my hearing to it. And once I got it, it sounded like the most wonderful thing in the world. And then, you go from this to Up on the Sun, and it's like, holy shit, this is one of the most amazing bands ever. Like, they went from, this is their second album, and then they made Up on the Sun, like, mind-blowing. So, I have Kurt to thank. A band who I definitely would not have heard of without Nirvana was the television personalities. Dan Tracy's long-running band. This is the singles compilation, Yes, Darling, But Is It Art? And the CD is a little fucked up, but there's Dan Tracy. I have most everything they've done. This is the Mummy, You're Not Watching Me. So there's so much I could say about this. But again, I had to attune myself to hearing it. And it was partially because of Nirvana that I was able to, I made the jump to Black Flag. But then once I had made the jump to Black Flag and really learned how to hear that, I learned how to hear all of this other all of this other music as well. Another band where the vocals were, in some ways, a barrier of entry, was they opened for Nirvana on the final U.S. tour in '93, and I definitely had never heard of before Nirvana, and it took me a while to find any of their records. I now have, if you can see up there, I have the bulk of the early work. They still are ridiculously prolific, and I'll be honest with you, I just can't keep up with it. And that's Half Japanese. This is my favorite album by them. This is 80. Is it 89? Oh, okay. I always think this is 87 or 88 for some reason. This is 89. This is the band that would be king. I eventually will be reviewing this. I fucking love this album. This is just incredible. And Half Japanese was such a singular, unique band. And I mean, you could point to precursors like a little bit of David Byrne, like a little bit of Jonathan Richman, but they are so completely and the Velvet Underground, and the Stooges, I guess, but so completely unique. And really that mid to late 80s full flowering where they had the horns and it was that sort of the bigger band thing. I revel in that stuff. I like the earlier skronky things. I like some of the later more kind of improv, writing songs on the fly. I appreciate those, but that mid to late 80s period, early 90s is just just totally magical to me. And that's some of my favorite music ever made. A band that was championed by Kurt as well as Billy Corgan, who the Pumpkins dedicated a whole segment of their 1994 Euphoria home video to them. But I came through Nirvana first. The Frogs. This, of course, is the epical It's Only Right and Natural, an album that I have listened to who knows how many endless bajillions of times. I have this on vinyl, but I somehow was unable to find my copy of it. Where are the Fs? Where are the Fs? Here the Fs are up here somewhere. So yeah, I somehow in there it is not in there. I don't know where the hell it is. So, but this is the CD I got in whatever year. So, the Frogs, wild, subversive, smart, funny, perfect. The best humorous music ever made. Because I still laugh and I'm still blown away at how daring and wild it is. Amazing. Who's next? This is absolutely a band I heard of. The 1992 Rolling Stone cover story, where Kurt had the corporate magazines still suck. They noted his teenage arrest and that he had a cassette by this band in his pocket. And so, I never would have heard of them. And that is MDC, Millions of Dead Cops. So this is the conjoined Millions of Dead Cops, More Dead Cops release. That was truly for me as a 14-year-old, and given that, the year before, I was still listening, I was listening to For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. The idea that there was a band called Millions of Dead Cops was, inconceivable to me. And it was well, what the fuck music does that sound like? So I had to go and find out. So, and Millions of Dead Cops, I still like them. This was right up my alley as a teenager. I feel like it kind of should be up any teenager's alley. There are people who don't like them. A little, we'll be honest. They are sub-Dead Kennedys. However, I still love them, and Dave Dichter is a great frontman, and there's a lot that I love about them. So yeah. Another band that because Nirvana covered them. They covered them at the '92 Reading Festival. I was in England the week after Nirvana. It would have had to have been the week after Nirvana performed at the Reading Festival. And I've referenced that trip before. But I got to buy all the English music weeklies, and we were there. I was able to get the week before and then the next week, right? So that was extremely exciting for me. And, but at the Reading Festival, which became one of my all-time, that's probably my single favorite Nirvana performance. I just loved them at that. And I had a bootleg of it on VHS for years. Then I had a bootleg DVD of it with slightly different editing. And then I have the official release, which had different editing than that. So me being, rich being rich meant that I have to keep 2 DVD copies because of the slightly different, beginnings and endings. But they covered this, I want to say, in the encore, The Money Will Roll Right In by Fang. Ahead of hearing the concert, the Money Will Roll Right In cover was on one of the Alcesticide bootlegs. And I somehow thought, I don't know why I thought this, but I somehow thought that Fang was like a metal band. Don't ask me how I got that. But I had never heard of them. And the recording quality was terrible. I remember the little summary, the little track information that they gave noted that it was rough but ready, which was highly generous. But anyway, I found out about Fang and eventually procured. This is the Land Shark and Where the Wild Things Are conjoined release because the records are really short. But Fang were fucking awesome and had some songs that I absolutely love. Some of my favorites would be The Money Will Roll Right In, of course. As great as Nirvana's version is, there's obviously is the definitive version. I love it. Let's see what are some of my other. Oh, Destroy the Handicapped, hilarious. They Sent Me to Hell, COD. Red Threat is one of my favorites. And I'm trying to think. Fun with Acid is really, really great. It's like kind of like a almost like a tribute to Flipper. The title song Land Shark is awesome. So anyway, lot to love about Fang. Let's see. We'll go back to vinyl. A band that obviously I knew about. I mean, I was a child of the 80s, so how could I not know about? But it was again because of Nirvana singling them out as a new wave influence. The significance of them as an influence, and then their cover of Turnaround made me think very differently about Devo. They went from being a kitschy one-hit wonder band from the 80s to, there's something to this band, and I started checking out Devo, and I became a devotee. So I mean, all these years later, I have all the Devo stuff, lots of bootlegs. At some point, there will be a Devo video. I actually would love to do a video covering the hardcore Devo years, the recordings that predate Are We Not Men, We Are Devo. This is their debut album, if you somehow don't know that. But yeah, huge Devo fan. How can I not be? So, and I also had grabbed my personal favorite, their second album, Duty Now for the Future. So at some point, I will definitely do a Devo video / videos. Another big one, and this came through because Kurt wore the t-shirt at the MTV Awards very famously, and they dedicated a whole segment to him in the documentary they made about him. Daniel Johnston. So this is Yip Jump music from summer of '83. Love this. There's some really, really great songs on here. It's the kind of the original like chord organ stuff. But this is the Shimmy Disc album he made. This is his album 1990. This is my personal favorite. If I were to review Daniel Johnston, this is the one I would do. This has some absolutely tremendous music on it, and I know that he gets lumped in as outsider music, and there are people, if you ever read the Amazon reviews of the Devil and Daniel Johnston video or documentary, it's like, is this a parody? I thought this was a joke, but I guess this is like a real guy, and it's like people thought it was like some sort of like Christopher Guest mockumentary, which is really sad and pretty kind of gross, But that album, 1990, is not challengingly. It's not challenging in its beauty. It is classically beautiful, at least to me it is. So if I'm ever going to do a Daniel Johnston video, that's the one I would really want to talk about the most. But I like lots of his stuff, so who knows? Let's see. There's so many. Oh, another band. Directly because of Kurt. I literally never would have heard of these people. Ever. And that's the Vaseline. So this is the Sub Pop, the 2009 Enter the Vaselines compendium. Nirvana covered Son of a Gun, Molly's Lips, Jesus Doesn't Want Me for a Sunbeam, which he changed the title of. They're glorious. This is absolutely wonderful stuff. So, Scottish pop songwriting perfection. So, and again, I never would have found out about them. A band, this is kind of a chicken and the egg thing. I've tried to actually figure out when I first heard of them. I think the very first time I heard of them would have been, they had an ad that ran during the Headbangers Ball. So I was aware, but I don't remember if they directly referenced them or if I got into Rollins and that. Like, I really don't remember. But again, by association, Black Flag. So I had the cassette. This is the Wasted Again compilation. I had the cassette of this, and I had the cassette of Incesticide, both compilations, and I would listen to those on the bus. I was in marching band, which I really did not enjoy a single moment of, and that I would trade off between those two cassettes, sometimes listen to one side of one and one side of the other, and go back and forth on my way out to these gigantic barn high schools out in the fucking, in who knows where, so we could walk around in some stupid formation for 16 minutes, and some asshole could stick a tape recorder in the bell of your horn to see if you really knew the parts. God, that was just hellacious. I can't believe I ever did that shit. Let's see what else we got here. Who's this down here? Oh, yeah. This is another band I knew of because they were on the first Lollapalooza, which would have been the first time I ever heard of them. But again, the Nirvana association is what made me curious, and Nirvana's constant referencing, especially in the Come As You Are Michael Azerrad book. Kurt mentions them a lot as kind of how he wanted to direct the future of the band, and that's the Butthole Surfers. They very much became one of my all-time favorites. This is their wonderful album, Rembrandt Pussy Horse. I could have grabbed any number of their albums. I have stuff on vinyl. I want to say I have, and the Cream Corn from the Sock of Davis. I want to say that I have the whole catalog. I believe I do. But just a tremendous band. And, again, I knew that they existed, but I don't know if I would have ventured into getting into them. Who knows? Another band that I found out kind of a little like Millions of Dead Cops. I remember Kurt referenced these guys as just an example of a raunchy punk rock band name, and I just thought it was such a great band name, and I couldn't believe there was a band called this, and that is the Angry Samoans. This is the unboxed set. This came out in 95 on the same the Triple X label that put out the first Jane's Addiction record. This is a compendium of their early recordings. Like, the Angry Samoans have some incredible songs. My favorite song of theirs is, if you've never heard it, my favorite song is Lights Out. It's hilarious, but also really, really awesome. So yeah, you should totally check out the Angry Samoans. A band that I was vaguely aware of, I had read a review of, I want to say, one of their later sort of reunion albums in Entertainment Weekly as a like 12 or 13. But again, when Kurt would talk about new wave bands, and they wound up becoming a huge favorite of mine, and that is the Gang of Four. This is obviously their first album, the masterpiece that is Entertainment. One of the best post-punk records. I mean, or one of the best records ever made. I mean, this thing is absolutely tremendous. And again, truly, I wouldn't have gotten into them. This wasn't where I started. I started with the Brief History of the 20th Century. Is that what it's called? Whatever that compilation is. So I started there and then started buying the other stuff. Also, somewhere in there, I got REM's tour film, and Michael Stipe briefly does the a cappella cover of We Live As We Dream Alone. So yeah, the Gang of Four was a big one. Another band that I got via a compilation first, and this is, there's been so much attached to this crap over the years, kind of like with John Lennon ripping off Come Together by Chuck Berry. It's endlessly irritating to me that this just keeps getting coughed up every few years by the internet. But this is a Killing Joke. 80s is what Come As You Are. Like, I don't know. I've never taken it very seriously. But this is their 1992 compilation, Laugh, I Nearly Bought One. And why did I buy this? Partly because I just wanted to hear 80s, partly because I wanted to hear Killing Joke, because I thought it was a cool name. And by this point, I would have known that they were peers of like Gang of Four and Public Image Limited, and I wasn't into Joy Division. No, I was into Joy Division by that point. That's right. So I knew they were peers of those bands, so I wanted to check it out because of that. But also, this is like one of the best fucking album covers of all time. I love this album cover. I've just always sort of been obsessed with it. And I now own umpteen endless Killing Joke albums. Another band that Nirvana got me into, and would I have ever gotten into them without Nirvana? I don't know. I don't, because I don't know that I would have had another way of hearing about them. Maybe I would have heard about them through Sonic Youth. That's certainly possible. Or who knows? Who knows? And thank God I got into this, because it informed so much of my music listening tastes into the 90s and into the 2000s. And I got so much from this weird little corner of the world. And it led to so much other music that I fucking love and eventually will make videos about someday. And that's Beat Happening. These are the first two albums. So there's Nirvana photos of, this is the second album, Black Candy. There is footage of Chris wearing a T-shirt with this album cover on it. So if you ever see that, so yeah, is this the second album or the third album? I'm now forgetting. Holy crap! Or is Jamboree the second album? I think Jamboree might be the second album, and that might be the third album. Anyway, but this is the first one. This is the iconic. I mean, look at that. Beautiful, beautiful cover. I have multiple copies of this album. I also have the box set over there, which I didn't grab. But it is autographed by all three members of the band. So that's pretty cool. Somebody who I heard of because Kurt referenced them in an interview, and it was years later. I always remembered the name, but I didn't see any records and didn't know anything other than this one-time reference, and that is the mystery known as Jandek. So in the Spin 1993 interview when In Utero was coming out, Kurt said, Jandek is not pretentious, but the people who like him are. And so I always thought that was an interesting comment. I didn't have any other frame of reference for Jandek. I thought maybe Jandek was a band. I didn't really know. This is maybe my favorite album by him. I love like Governor Rhodes, but the reason I like this one the most, in some ways, it has one of the ultimate freakout songs of all time. Like one of the truly greatest freakout songs ever, You Painted Your Teeth, which I fucking love. And it's truly not for everyone, but it's for me. So yeah, I tiptoed around Jandek for years. And then at some point I just did the big deep dive and bought a ton of stuff from Corewood. So I got these like huge boxes in the mail, and it was very exciting. A band that I found out about because Kurt got their catalog reissued, and that is the Raincoats. So Kurt leveraged his power. There it is, Geffen, the Geffen Gold line. So this obscure 3-person, 3-woman post-punk band. They made 3 albums in their original incarnation. They eventually got back together, but Kurt got the catalog fully reissued. So the first self-titled album, this is their second album, Oddie Shape, and then the third album, Moving. A lot of people focus only on the first album, and the sort of the cabal of certain rock critics out there, who shall remain nameless, only obsess about the first album, and which I think is really gross and misses the whole point, because the jump to Oddie Shape, I think Oddie Shape is one of the best albums ever made. There will eventually be a Raincoats review. There was going to be a Raincoats review after Black Flag, and I don't remember why, but I talked myself out of it. Who knows why? But there absolutely 1,000% will be Raincoats video or videos at some point, because I'm a big fan. But I love this album, and I really love the third album, Moving. It's incredible. I don't know why those aren't as revered. Kurt wrote really cool liner notes or essay for the reissue of the first album. This one I think has a little write-up from Kim Gordon. But they were so experimental, so unprecedented. You can't really compare their music to anything. The only thing I could really compare it to would be, if you had to compare it to something, and this predates it, but it would be like an even more avant-garde extrapolation or distillation of Kate Bush's The Dreaming would be the closest thing that I could compare it to. But really, you can't compare it. I mean, maybe certain Beefheart things, maybe like, but this is its own thing. These ladies made their own musical universe, their own musical language. They're fucking geniuses. This stuff is just heroic. The first song, Shouting Out Loud, is one of my favorite songs ever recorded by anyone. It's a fucking symphony. I love it. Jesus Christ. So literally, it's because of Kurt. Like, I wouldn't have come across that. And then we'll end this on sort of the biggest one, because, again, another T-shirt of Kurt's, the homemade T-shirt from '92, and also they early performances, they would cover this band's most famous song, and that is Flipper. They would cover Sex Bomb. Before I ever heard this, I've talked about this before, I think. Before I ever heard the Sex Pistols, I just had a photo of the Sex Pistols, and I was a fan of the Sex Pistols simply because of one photo of them. I was a fan of the Dead Kennedys because they had, I didn't know if it was a song or an album or what, I didn't know, called Holiday in Cambodia. That was enough to make me a fan. So 12-year-old me had the Dead Kennedys, in and among all the Motley Crue stuff I had drawn on my book covers, I had the Dead Kennedys logo all over the place because I was a fan of the band by only knowing that they had something called Holiday in Cambodia. That was more than enough for me as like a 12, 13-year-old. And Flipper, the fact that there was a band called Flipper, that this was their logo, and that they had a song called Sex Bomb, I was all in. It took fucking years because of when I came around. I never saw a copy of American Graffiti, which was their reunion album, which came out in '93. But all their stuff was out of print for ages. And in the late '90s, I actually created an eBay account just so I could go and buy all of the albums. So I have, again, the Fs are coming up again. The Fs, the Flipper records are literally right there. Not going to pull those down, but I bought one by one. I got the whole Flipper catalog on vinyl because it was the only way you could hear the records, and because the vinyl packaging was so absolutely tremendous. This is the first album. This is the one that, kind of like the Raincoats first album, this is the one that makes all the critics lists, and kind of like with the Raincoats, this album's great. It's a masterpiece. They only got better. I love the other stuff. Actually, not maybe much more, but more. The real action comes after this, I think. So as much of a masterpiece as that is, a perfect masterpiece. But again, Flipper, it's directly because of Nirvana. So they had a huge, wonderful, positive influence on my life. I love that band. Loved them then, still love them now, and from here, from the Raincoats, you get to you get the Slits, you find out about Lilliput, you know, you can just keep going and keep extrapolating and keep drilling, and you find out about this entire other world out there, and it's a big, vast, wonderful world to run around in and revel in and enjoy, and present you with ideas and sounds and words and images and thoughts and feelings that you didn't even know that you had yet. So Nirvana, you know, that was, I talk about like what a well-functioning subculture looks like. Nirvana was indicative of that. And when they were the biggest band in the world, it made all the sense in the world to me, because they were the best band in the world, so they should be the biggest band in the world. And the fact that they evangelized the way they did is just, it's an incredibly generous gift that they gave me, and that they gave to a lot of other people. So, and I think sometimes people may not realize how deep it goes, that Nirvana lit the match again and again and again and again. And I think if you really drill back, it's kind of shocking just how much stuff they exposed and sort of brought up to the surface. So there's a million other bands I could mention sort of vaguely by association. I mean, I could talk about Husker Du. I could talk about how Nirvana, you know, I stayed a fan of Aerosmith and stuff because of like you could just keep going, and Black Sabbath, like you could just keep going and going and going. Truly the endless rings of the ripple effect, and it still resonates for me all these decades later, and maybe it does for you too. If you've liked this video, thank you for watching. Please like and comment and subscribe. And for anybody, if you've never seen one of my videos before, or if you are a long-time viewer, I've been at this less than a year, I would love to know what bands Nirvana got you into, especially if we're roughly of the same age. I'm 45. So I would be very keen to hear about that, and we can all go traipsing down memory lane together. And the other thing is now the channel update. So I'm filming this at the very end of September. I'm not sure exactly what day I'm going to put this up yet, but a lot going on in the next several weeks and months. So this video might sit for several weeks, so just be cool. I'll be coming back. Like I said, got a lot going on. It's all cool stuff. It's all good, positive stuff. And but I will be back. It may be a few weeks, because again, I have a lot of really ambitious ideas. And I don't want to just do one-off videos, you know, or where I talk just about one album and then that's it. I could do that all day and fill this whole channel with that. But I do have some longer form things. I would love to do a boredoms video again. Let me know what would work for you if you want boredoms videos, because you know me, I tend to run long. But like I said, I have lots of other ideas as well. So, and I want to take the time to do that right. So it may be another several weeks before I'm back, but I will be with you digitally and spiritually. So yes, like I said, please like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, everybody, I will see you in the next video. And thank you for watching, and